Mic check one,
Yo,
two.
get out of here with them weak ass shoes, yo.
Balls deep. I'm talking about balls deep. I'm talking about balls deep in love. I'm talking about balls deep. I'm talking about balls deep. I'm talking about balls deep in love.
What's up, Balls Deep fam? To episode 10 of season 2 of Balls Deep with Devin and Jovan. In this corner is Jovan, and in this corner is Devin. And welcome to Balls Deep. Uh, but for today's episode, we'll be talking about some NFL football, in particular because Super Bowl weekend was just this past weekend. Very disappointing.
Was it?
Super Bowl.
Didn't even feel like it.
Yeah, it was. It really didn't, especially because we were dealing with the snowstorm on that day, and then the Super Bowl just was almost non-existent. But we'll get to that in a few minutes, or a few seconds, I should say. But before we get started, this is Balls Deep. Where we dive balls deep into how the stories in sports. Make sure to like, follow, and subscribe on all platforms. Hit the download button. Make sure to leave some comments and reviews for us. And hey, we want to interact with you. So check out our Instagram or any of our social media pages. Because every Wednesday we have a poll of the week. So that's your opportunity to interact with us. And you can also just message us, let us know how we're doing or what you want to hear from us. So go do that, and let's get started. So the Super Bowl, or should I say, I don't even know. It was more like a mini bowl. I think the Puppy Bowl, if there was one this year, was more interesting than the actual Super Bowl. But
I think the most exciting and interesting part of that Super Bowl is the fact that there was a streaker at it, and that's it.
yeah,
It was horrible.
Kenny said that's our new intro, season 2, 2021.
Yep.
But hey, there was that, and then probably the best commercial was in my opinion, was the Cheetos commercial with Mila Kunis, Ashton Kutcher, and Shaggy.
I didn't see that. Oh, yeah, I did. It wasn't me.
Yeah,
Yeah, I saw that one.
that was probably
was
the
a
best
fun-
commercial, hands down, in my opinion. They just overplayed the Drake State Farm commercial to the point where I didn't even like it anymore. Um, but hey, one can say the Drake curse lived on, because he was in the State Farm commercial with Patrick Mahomes,
with Patty.
and it was
Oh,
a wrap
man.
after that. But the Bucks took down the Chiefs 31-9. It wasn't even
man.
close.
Horrible.
But it could have been a lot closer should, some people have caught these passes from Patrick Mahomes. It almost seemed like the Chiefs didn't leave the locker room or didn't even show up to Tampa to even participate in the Super Bowl. So, what were your thoughts on the game? And we'll kind of go from there.
I don't really my mind almost feels empty when I think about the Super Bowl because even immediately after it was over, you have a crowned NFL champion. You have the season's over, you have the winner of the season, and I just felt so unsatisfied. So unsatisfied. And it was so sad to see because there was so much hype around this game. It was supposed to be such a good game. Everybody pictured a blowout, or not a blowout. I'm sorry. It was a blowout. Everyone pictured, a shootout, and I thought we were gonna get a good game. Goat versus baby goat, and I mean, it was not close. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes had more yards running away from the Bucks defense than I think the Chiefs had total offense. Um, it looked like the Chiefs receivers couldn't catch any balls. The only person catching anything was Travis Kelce, and even he had, I think, a drop or two. Um, it was just bad. The Bucks defense really was fucking everywhere, all over the place. Um, you know, their offense was doing what they had to. Gronk, saved his touchdowns for the Super Bowl apparently because he did jack shit the rest of the season. Nah, it was a crazy game. It was just unexpected to say the least. I didn't expect it at all. Like I didn't expect a blowout like that. And if I did, I definitely didn't expect it to be on the Chiefs side of things. Because I don't think we've ever seen their offense score that little points under Patrick Mahomes. I know we haven't seen them lose by that much with Patrick Mahomes. So it just seemed unreal. It seemed crazy. Seemed like a very anticlimactic ending to a great season. Unfortunately, I wish it was a better game. But either way, it was dope. It was a great NFL season, but it just I don't know. It just felt so unsatisfying for the last game of the NFL season. I wish we'd got a better game.
I was one to say that this Super Bowl was as disappointing as the Seahawks Broncos Super Bowl that we had not that long ago, due to it not living up to the hype. Because that season we had the number one offense versus the number one defense, and the Seahawks that year straight up neutralized that Broncos offense. The number one offense at that. They neutralized them. There was nothing they can do. It was just a straight up spanking. And in this case, it was a straight up spanking.
Yeah.
Like, I had the Chiefs going into this game. I didn't expect the Bucks to win. I had the game. I predicted it to be 28-14 on my Twitter. And I was wrong. Just straight up. And it's not that I have anything against Brady. There's no reason for me to. He didn't beat my team, so ever in the biggest stage. So I'm not worried about that. I just didn't expect the Chiefs to come out looking so flat. They just
Yeah.
didn't look like themselves. And kudos to Todd Bowles and that defense. If I could crown a MVP to a coach or Super Bowl MVP to a coach, Todd Bowles would take it in an instant. I'm not saying that Brady didn't deserve the MVP because he balled out himself, but Todd Bowles to neutralize a Chiefs offense to no touchdowns in the Super Bowl.
They even let the Chiefs score 10 points.
Yes, and
It's one of the most high-powered offenses we've seen in this league for years. I mean, since really, like you said, the Seahawks, the Rams, maybe that year against the Patriots, which Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots did the same thing that year, except they didn't score as many points to make the game as lopsided as the Bucks did.
it was crazy just to see the difference of how they played them in the regular season to the Super Bowl. Like after the first half, in the second half of the regular season game, Tyreek Hill was pretty much non-existent. And then in the Super Bowl, he was non-existent the entire game. And not even just that. Although Travis Kelce was the leading receiver for the Chiefs, I don't even think he eclipsed 100 yards.
Nope.
So he pretty much neutralized that and Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill to the point where they couldn't expose anything. And they already have the number one rushing defense in the league. So they weren't running the ball at all. There was no way. But I was one to say that Patrick Mahomes looked like a chicken with his head cut off. Just the way that he was running around in the pocket trying to make plays happen. Because I think he was probably the only one, maybe him and maybe Travis Kelce were the only ones on the Chiefs offense to even show up to play. Because although Patrick Mahomes didn't look the healthiest in terms of, his injury that he had took on with I believe his foot leading up to the Super Bowl, he didn't look the healthiest, but he looked like the only player to show up. Because these incompletions that he was doing, like the one that he was freaking getting tackled to the ground and he was in midair and he threw it, like that was probably the most accurate pass and most acrobatic pass I've seen in my life. And
yeah, he was making passes that I've never seen anybody make.
And that was like that pass was on the dime. It was there was many of those passes that that should have been made, that should have been touchdowns, should his players have caught the ball. Like, it's crazy. It's almost crazy what this guy is capable of doing. I wouldn't go as far as saying, Stephen A. Smith is saying like he'll never be considered the GOAT because he didn't beat Brady this time around, and he didn't beat Brady in the AFC Championship when they played, and because Brady's the GOAT. That's what you got to live up to. I wouldn't go as far as that, just because he showed up to play. The rest of the team didn't, because the offensive line was terrible. Like, he was on the run every single
The
play.
whole team was
Well,
terrible.
yeah,
I
but
mean,
he was on the run every single play, and that just goes to show that regardless of how good of a quarterback you are, you need an offensive line. And people, butchered Eli Manning his whole career, saying that he was washed, that he wasn't this, he wasn't that. Although outside of those two Super Bowls, he didn't have an offensive line. And
yeah.
look, just as good of a quarterback as Patrick Mahomes is, he didn't have offensive line this game, and he looked like a normal quarterback.
Yeah.
He,
Well, I mean, the Chiefs had a few offensive linemen out, but it didn't look like they had made any adjustments for the game in terms of having lost those two offensive linemen. Um, and obviously, I mean, we saw what happened in the second half of the last game against the Bucks and the Chiefs with the Bucks and the Chiefs. Obviously, it looked like that the Chiefs were figured out because they got slowed down, but they just had their score. Their score was just enough out of reach that the Bucks, couldn't do it in time. Almost at least that's how it feels now looking back at it, because they neutralized them in that second half, and then they neutralized them completely this entire game. So it's almost like the Chiefs are just a little bit too one-dimensional in a sense, especially now after losing, two of your offensive linemen. It just felt like, the coaches didn't really prepare this team to go out there and win a football game. It didn't look like they made any adjustments. I was surprised that, you know, even though he might not have that many touches, he might not be that involved in your offense. When you lose your offensive lineman like you did, and your offense clearly isn't working, I'm surprised that Le'Veon Bell didn't see even a single snap, and they didn't maybe use him in the backfield to catch passes to open the field up a little bit more for that team, because clearly nothing was working. Patrick Mahomes had no time to throw the ball. Honestly, if you give Le'Veon Bell a chance, give him some passes in the backfield to, you know, give Patrick Mahomes the opportunity to get those quick dink and dunk throws and get that offense working, and then maybe you could start hitting Tyreek deep or even hitting Kelsey down the middle, get that run game going. I mean, the Chiefs just looked like they didn't try anything because nothing was working, and they just kept trying the same stuff. And it really just led to Patrick Mahomes running for his life. It was just bad.
yeah, because I believe he at least 52% of the offensive snaps he was under pressure, and
Yeah, I mean, guy had 400. They said he had 497 yards running away from the offensive line.
yeah.
I mean, from the defensive line. Like, you know how crazy that is? You ran 497 yards.
And the crazy thing is, he was almost he almost looked like a baby trying to run away from his parents. Just the way he was like moving with his hands. So that I was just laugh. It was just so laughable about how much time this dude had. He didn't have much time to do anything, but that says a lot about the Bucks and their game
Yeah.
plan. They executed their game plan to a T. Like
Oh,
it
perfect.
was there's no better way to do it, and this is why they're the champions. They were the better team that day. They were probably the better team going into that game. Although I chose the Chiefs, I was expecting the overpowered offense that they had to continue, which they didn't. That defense was for the Bucks did what they had to do, and the Bucks offense actually showed up in
Yeah.
comparison to
I
the
mean,
way they were all season.
honestly, the Bucks probably played literally their most perfect game ever, and the Chiefs probably played their worst game ever, because every person on both sides of the ball for the Bucks was near perfect. I mean, they just did what they needed to do. They did their jobs. They executed everything they needed to do, and the Chiefs did just opposite that. And it was horrible. It was really bad. Like, I've never seen anything like
So
that.
I want to echo what you said. I think Le'Veon Bell would have made a difference in terms of the passing game. They could have used him in the slot. They could have used formations where him and Clyde Edwards-Helaire were both on the field at the same time to kind of give the you know them a mix of who's going to get the ball in the running game, or have them both go out and come out of the backfield. I think that would have benefited. Maybe one stays in to block while the other one goes out to receive. They could have used as much help as possible, just because they had to become one-dimensional at some point when the lead got out of hand. And I
Yeah.
think the momentum shifted when Tyreek Hill let the ball hit him in the face mask, because that touchdown, I feel like, would have helped the momentum of the Chiefs going forward. Sadly, it didn't. And after the second field goal, I was fed up. I think they should have went for it instead of going for their third field goal. Um, that's just me. But to talk about their defense was carrying them pretty much the whole game, and that doesn't say much because they were causing them the game. They're costing them the game as well because of their mental mistakes on the defensive end, like with the flags. They were holding like crazy. Although you might not agree with some of the officiating calls, um, like I think the pass interference call with, I think, was Mike Evans or Gronk in the end zone. I don't agree with that call because I think it was uncatchable, and so they should have been called. But although you might disagree with some of the officiating calls, none of that would have helped the Chiefs win that game. It was just the Bucks were almost levels above what the Chiefs brought to the table, and their defense, I think, is something that they need to improve on. The secondary in particular, because outside of uh, their rookie Snead and Tyrann Matthews, their corners or DBs can't guard a lick in the secondary.
And even Tyrann Matthew didn't look that great. Tom Brady was attacking him all game. But also with that being said, I mean, I don't know. The officiating, there was a lot of calls, but I will say the only one that I could say I didn't agree with was that pass interference call, because regardless of how you feel about it or not, the Chiefs were holding a lot, and that
For
was
sure.
nobody's fault but their own. And honestly, I think the only one that was a bad call was that pass interference. But would that have made a difference in a game in which you guys literally scored not even a single touchdown? I don't think so. Uh, it would have stopped maybe another Bucks touchdown, but at that point, I mean, it's just, softening the, the hurt a little bit at that point. But that's it.
Yeah, I think Brady's seen something on tape and he targeted it. He made sure to make it obvious to the point where he was getting those calls. Because some people might disagree with the Mike Evans pass interference call on the outside because they said, hey, it's uncatchable because he kind of overthrew him. But Mike Evans is a big receiver. He could have dove, caught it. It's not out of the realm of a possibility that he could have caught that pass. Whereas that one in the end zone, Brady pretty much threw it in the stands. So I didn't
Yeah.
understand that one. But there's nothing we can do. Congrats to the Bucks for being the best team. Congrats to
Yeah.
Brady for his seventh ring. He has more, you know, Super Bowls than any franchise in Super Bowl or in any franchise. He has more MVPs. I think he got his fifth MVP than some. I think 28 franchises have Super Bowls. This guy, he solidified himself as the GOAT or the greatest quarterback of all time. I don't know how you want to determine the greatest football player of all time, but he's up there, and there's no question that he's the best quarterback of all time. The storyline is crazy.
Definitely the best winner of all
The
time.
storyline is crazy where they're the first team to host the Super Bowl and they win it. So, congrats to them. But also congrats to the Hall of Fame class of 2021. Do you want to go ahead and list some of the names that, the stacked Hall of Fame class consists of?
Yeah, this is a really good stacked Hall of Fame class. You got Peyton Manning, Charles Woodson, Calvin Johnson, Drew Pearson, Alan Faneca, Bill Nunn, John Lynch, and Tom Flores. So it is, a pretty, notable class. Obviously, we know who Peyton Manning is. Uh, stud, one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. In my opinion, the greatest quarterback of all time. Literally an on-field coach. Can do anything, can read a defense like nobody else. Nobody can play the quarterback position like Peyton Manning can, in my opinion. Um, Calvin Johnson's in that class. Megatron, one of my favorite receivers of all time. A stud, literally cannot guard him no matter how many people you have on him. It's impossible.
They had
Um,
at
you
one
know,
point in his career they had two people pressing him at the line of scrimmage. They were double teaming him up until the safety help. So he was getting triple teamed, still catching
Yeah.
passes. It's unbelievable that this dude was what 6'5", with a 42-inch vertical or something like that.
Yeah.
He's
And
scary.
got into the Hall of Fame pretty early. Drew Pearson, Dallas Cowboys wide receiver. He was the only player of his decade team to not be in the Hall of Fame and just missed it last year. He actually made it this year. He went viral last year for not having made it and was a little upset about that fact, but he did in fact make it this year, so
But
congrats to him as
well,
well.
he's actually out of everybody that made it, he's actually the one I'm happiest for because although he's a Cowboy, he did deserve to make it to the Hall of Fame, and I think last year wasn't the first time that he missed it. I think he was just
No.
fed up to the point last year that like it doesn't make any sense why I'm not here, and he was like tearing up, crying, and then that's why he went viral. To the point now, I think they surprised him at the Cowboy Stadium or something like that, where Jerry Jones was there and his quarterback was there, Roger Staubach. So it was pretty bittersweet for him and bittersweet to see, um, just for something that means so much to him. He finally
Yeah.
got to receive it in a notable fashion at that. So
And deservingly so.
for sure, it didn't make any sense because when they put out all decade teams, he made it.
Yeah.
So it didn't make sense why he made that list, but he didn't make the Hall of Fame. So
He was the only person from his all decade team not to make the
so
Hall of Fame. You know what I mean?
I think
So,
once they put that
uh,
team out, it was kind of obvious that this guy deserved to make it. So I'm happy for him.
def-
And although he's a Cowboy, uh, congrats to you, my friend.
with that being said, nice stack 2021 class, but players eligible for the Pro Football Hall of Fame for the first time in 2022 includes Dallas Cowboy DeMarcus Ware, or former Dallas Cowboy DeMarcus Ware, Devin Hester, Steve Smith Sr., Robert Mathis, Andre Johnson, Vince Wilfork, and Anquan Bolden. So also very notable class. A lot more recent names in there, some more familiar names that people might recognize. It's a lot of guys in there that are pretty recently retired at least. So
I'm
um,
excited for that class.
very no
I'm excited for that
very
class.
good notable class as well. A lot of
And the
big
reason
names in
why I'm
there.
excited for that class is a lot of big names, a lot of people that, well, I got to watch all of them. So this is
Yep.
more of like, you can say my time or our time, I should say. But the reason why I'm excited, one of my favorite players of all time is in this class, and that is Devin Hester. Devin Hester is hands down the greatest returner of all time. So I'm curious to see if he will be a first ballot Hall of Famer. I think he should be, but it's they in terms of specialists, the Hall of Fame committee tends to be harder on them in terms of voting them in. So I'm excited to see what they decide on this guy. The one, this guy was able to change the game with just touching the football. Like you would think,
Yeah.
hey, the game's out of hand. You kick the ball to him on a punt or a kick return, takes it to the crib. It's a wrap. Like just although they lost the Super Bowl when they played the Colts, the opening kickoff, he returned it to the crib. Momentum shifted right there and then. So if
Yeah.
it wasn't for playing Peyton Manning, the Bears could have won that game.
I mean, there's if there's any specialist that's going to be able to get first ballot, it's Devin Hester. I mean, more simply because he is probably not no not probably he is the best return specialist we've ever seen touch the field, and that's period. I mean, there's nobody that could you know literally you're scared to kick to every time, because he can bring it back anytime. So obviously, but there's a lot of good notable names on there. Steve Smith Sr. is another one. Very underrated guy throughout his career. If you know, you know. Steve Smith is a dog. One of the hardest workers on the football field at all times. And he's a talker, but he also lets his game do the talking. So he's another name I'm excited for. DeMarcus Ware, even him being a Cowboy. I hate the Cowboys, but he was always
A
a
problem.
guy that I liked.
He was always a
Yeah,
problem.
always a guy that I liked because he gave us problems. I love defensive linemen who make who are a problem, who make the game exciting, who can terrorize an offensive line, and that's what Demarcus Ware did. Even though he did it twice a year against my Giants for quite a few years, he was always fun to watch. So it's definitely a very notable class as well, just like this last 2021 class. So I'm excited for a lot of these names on here.
For sure. And before we move on, um, the human joystick Dante Hall, he he was getting interviewed by I forget who, and I think Nate Burleson introduced him as the greatest returner of all time, and he stopped him. He was like, "Nah, I'm not the greatest of all time." He goes, "Oh, he's being humble," and he was like, "Nah, I'm not being humble. The greatest of all time, or the greatest returner of all time is Devin Hester." So he
Oh,
gave
definitely.
him props as he should, and I think with the respect from his peers, you can call them, it just goes to show how amazing of a player he was, and that he should be first ballot. But
Yeah.
a lot of these guys, if not all of them, should be first ballot. I don't see anyone that you listed not making it. Um, they're all Super Bowl winners except Steve Smith and Anquan. No, not Anquan. Andre Johnson. But their numbers speak for themselves. So
Yeah.
they're all dogs in their respective ways. But we're gonna shift over to more congratulatory news. The NFL honors. Aaron Rodgers came away with the MVP. Derrick Henry came away with the Offensive Player of the Year. Aaron Donald came away with the Defensive Player of the Year. Alex Smith came away with the Comeback Player of the Year. Justin Herbert, Offensive Rookie of the Year. Chase Young, Defensive Rookie of the Year. Kevin Stefanski, Coach of the Year. What do you think of those selections? Did you have any questions about any of them? Let's hear it.
Um. So obviously, congratulations to all those guys. You know, all okay. So I will say this: all very deserving. But in the same breath, there is one in particular that I have issue with, maybe a second. So the first one for me is Offensive Rookie of the Year. I thought, I thought as well as a lot of people did, undoubtedly that should have been Justin Jefferson. I think he ran away with that award. I think it was honestly his. I think Justin Herbert had a shot earlier in the year, and lost it. I know you mentioned the fact that he got shut out by New England as a fact that a reason he shouldn't have won it, which I agree
I think
with.
that's when he lost it.
You know, yeah, I think the fact that really to not completely to any fault of his own. The Chargers were losing a lot of close games. I think that's another reason. I think just the fact that Justin Jefferson meant so much to that Vikings team this year, a team that was really in the playoff hunt all year and fighting, and he meant so much to that team. He broke, Randy Moss's franchise rookie record, as well as the NFL record in receiving. You know what I mean? I just think what he did. I hate the QB bias in this league. I was having this conversation with Denzel, our friend from Expansion Pack Podcast. I honestly was just. I think that they should just separate these QB awards because it's almost unfair what you have to do as a position player just to be able to beat out a quarterback for an award. I think what Justin Jefferson did was a lot more impressive for a wide receiver than what Justin Herbert did. I don't think Justin Herbert did anything that I've never seen before. Although, like I said, deservingly so. He was a great rookie. I don't think that he shouldn't have won it. I just think the fact that Justin Jefferson was in that class means that he didn't, and unfortunately, he still got the award.
That
So that one did bother me a little
that's
bit. I just think,
that's the only one I had a problem with, honestly.
well,
Just
yeah,
because
well, the only,
although he broke Randy Moss's record, I think Justin Herbert broke the quarterback record for rookies. I think he beat out Baker Mayfield's record. I'm not saying that he didn't deserve it. Like you said, any other year he probably would have won the award. It was just because Justin Jefferson deserved it that much more because it was his award to lose. up until
Yeah.
like he was the leading candidate. Him and Justin Jefferson were going hand in hand for some time, but obviously he was leading that race. They both finished. Both teams finished 7-9 for the season. But where Justin Herbert lost me was when the Patriots shut him out because Justin Jefferson was just more consistent all year round, in my opinion, and that's why I think he deserved it more. A lot of their peers around the league said Justin Jefferson should have won, and
Yeah.
a lot of the reason why I think Justin Herbert won is what you said, the QB bias in this league, because it's almost like when Saquon won Offensive Rookie of the Year over Baker. I felt like some people would have. Well, some people did vote Baker because of the QB bias, and I thought he was going to come away with it because of the QB bias. I think in this instance, Justin Jefferson was just as impressive as Saquon was his rookie year.
Yeah.
Two different positions, but the way his production says enough for him to get that award. There's no reason why he didn't win that award. And he had a comment on Instagram. He put up a post basically saying, or that he's gonna use that as motivation for next year. Like
Yeah.
he almost feels disrespected in a sense.
Yeah, definitely. But with that being said, I don't necessarily have a problem with this one. I do not at all. I just want to, preface it by saying that. Um, but also, I wasn't as aware of it until it was brought to my attention by his brother J.J. Watt. So T.J. Watt.
I knew exactly what you were gonna say.
So T.J. Watt, very deserving of the Defensive Player of the Year.
For sure.
He led every stat category with two less games, just every major stat category with two less games on the defensive side of the ball. Just like J.J. Watt said, he posted the graphic. So I do think that T.J. Watt deserved it. I'm a huge fan of T.J. Watt. I think he was very deserving of the award. But with that being said, I'm not completely upset about the fact that AD won it, because if you know football, if you watch football, if you pay attention, it's easy to see. All it takes is no numbers. I get it. Numbers don't lie. 100% agree. But also, my eyes don't lie to me when I'm seeing, you know, day in, day out, at each and every game, nearly play by play, Aaron Donald is getting double, even triple teamed, uh, just so that he's not. I mean, he's literally terrorizing offensive lines. It's crazy. He's how much.
They have the game plan around him.
Yeah, you have the game plan around this guy. Like every time, no matter how good your offensive lineman lineman is, he's gonna eat him up, and you're gonna have to double or triple team him, no matter who you have. And that's just the kind of impact that he has as a defender, as a pass rusher. His sack numbers aren't as high as they have been in recent years, but he's also creating so much pressure on the offensive line and opening things up for the rest of his guys. I mean, he does this consistently every single year. So that's why I say I don't completely have an issue with it, because I know what Aaron Donald does on a game-to-game basis. He literally terrorizes offensive lines, and he, garners so much attention, and you have to game plan just for him. So it's hard to say that he doesn't deserve it, but it is also hard to say that T.J. Watt doesn't deserve it when the numbers are there too. So that one's tough for me. Either guy winning it doesn't upset me, but two deserving players. It's tough. You know what I mean?
I agree with you 100%. I don't care who wins. I think both of them deserve it. If either of them won, I wouldn't have been mad. I mean, I predicted T.J. Watt in the beginning of the season to win Defensive Player of the Year, and then when it came down to the end of the season, I picked Aaron Donald because he's Aaron Donald. I mean, it's pretty much how it goes. T.J. Watt's numbers speak up for themselves. He definitely was either number one or number two. He was pretty much 1A and 1B all season between him and Aaron Donald for Defensive Player of the Year. Only reason why I don't mind Aaron Donald winning, because although T.J. Watt had played two less games or what have you, Aaron Donald is putting up just as good of production as T.J. Watt. And like you said, he's garnering more attention from the defensive or from the offensive end or the opposing offenses. Like he's getting double, triple teamed, and he's still putting up these numbers.
Yeah.
That he is. He's an animal. He's a generational talent. He's probably the most dominant defensive player I've seen in some time. I think you mentioned before, J.J. Watt is up there with some of the greats. Aaron Donald just might be up there with some.
Oh,
Well, he is up there
Yeah.
for with some of the greats. He might be
He has
by the
three
end of his
defensive
career.
player of the years in the last 4 years. I
By
mean,
the
it's
end of his career,
undeniable.
by the end of his career, he's going to be the greatest interior defensive lineman of all time. So just for him to put up as much production as he is with the attention that he's garnering from opposing offenses, it's hard to pick against him. So
Yeah.
if there was such thing as a co-defensive player of the year, I think this probably was the time because it's kind of hard to go against Aaron Donald, but T.J. Watt definitely deserved some kind of award or honor.
I mean, and that's why I said I don't necessarily have issue with it. But,
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, if I'm them, I might have just give it to T.J. Watt because I know Aaron Donald's going to be there again next year. So.
But that's almost like the LeBron talk because
Yeah.
LeBron deserved MVPs for some time. I'm not gonna say this past season, although I thought he should have won. I think throughout his career he should have won more MVPs than he did. But it's almost like someone said, I forget who was recently. They said he didn't win as much MVP awards because people got bored of him.
They just got bored of giving it to him.
They got bored of his greatness, and now he's not just getting compared to other players' performances. He's getting compared to his MVP performances in his past years, and almost like Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers said his worst year is other people's best years. It's almost like LeBron in a sense where he should have won MVPs in the NBA that he didn't because people just got bored of him, and that's what would have happened if they gave it to T.J. Watt because you're just bored of Aaron Donald winning it, so let's just mix it up because I'm not saying T.J. Watt's not deserving of it because there's other players like Kevin Durant, Derrick Rose, who were deserving of winning their MVPs, but
Steph
LeBron
Curry.
just had, and LeBron just had just as good of a season you can say. So it's just hard to kind of pinpoint somebody and leaving other people out of it.
It was a close race. Like I said, that's why I didn't necessarily have issue with him winning because I know what AD does on a game-to-game basis. But it is tough to see a guy like T.J. Watt have such a great year and not win it. But he is a talented guy. I have no doubt that he'll also be back there right there next year with AD again. So,
I mean, outside of the offensive rookie of the year, the only thing that bothered me was for comeback player of the year. It wasn't unanimous. One person voted for Ben Roethlisberger for comeback player of the year, and he had a good start to the season, but he was very inconsistent, and I don't think he deserved that one vote, honestly. Comeback player of the year was Alex Smith's award to lose. Once he stepped on the field, he won the award right there and then because he wasn't supposed to play.
Especially once he won a game.
Well, when he won a game, when he won a game, he solidified it. But when he stepped on the
Once
field,
he won a game, it was unanimous.
yeah. Once he stepped on the field, it was his award to lose. But I was happy to see there was a video that they put out of him watching people, congratulating him, and it just seemed like it meant so much to him, just to hear these words from these individuals that were in the video. Dak Prescott was a part of it, and he basically said, I've looked up to you my entire career, from playing under, the same coaching staff in college, or some of the same coaches, I should say, and then to now, where now I'm dealing with the injury and I have to come back. You motivate me. Basically, he said, if you can come back from your injury, there's no doubt that I can come back from mine. And I'm paraphrasing here, but that right there was dope. And then now, Urban Meyer, because I didn't realize Urban Meyer coached him at Utah. Urban Meyer was even in the video and gave him some words of encouragement. Matt Nagy from the Bears, he coached him in KC, gave him some words of encouragement and congratulated him. It was just a dope video to watch. I think it's on Instagram. It was probably like 15 minutes long. I encourage people who are tuning in, or even yourself, if you haven't watched it, go check it out. It's pretty dope. But to shift over to some, news around the league. Cardinals and Patrick Peterson agreed to part ways. I believe Patrick Peterson is a free agent this season. It blows my mind that the Cardinals didn't, try to trade him at the deadline for the past couple of years to try to get something out of him, especially if they figured, to go in this different direction, to go in this direction, I should say, or separate, to go in different directions. But for me, he hasn't looked. He definitely lost a step this season in comparison to years past. So I can see why they want to plan for the future. My only issue is they didn't get anything for him.
Yeah.
But he hasn't really looked the same in terms of since he's came back from his suspension. But he's still a really good cornerback.
Yeah.
And I
he's
hope
an
that
all-time corner. I mean, he's always going to be talented.
he might go to a team where he's the number 2 corner. But I think he still could be a number 1 in the league.
I mean, the Chiefs could use him.
The Chiefs can use him. That's a team that I would like to see him go to if they can afford him, because he's still looking for, I think, $12 million, which seems
steep.
Steep. I think he'll take some pay cuts for probably the better teams. But another team that I would like to see him go to is the Seahawks. Just to see him there with Jamal Adams, Bobby Wagner. They need secondary help as well. So Seahawks, Chiefs, those are 2 teams that I would like to see him go to. I think he deserves. I think he deserves to be on a winning team, especially after being with the Cardinals for a lot of their rebuilding years. So
we need to get Larry Legend out of there too. Well, we got to get him a Super Bowl.
But he's not leaving there. He said once if he leaves, it's over. It's a wrap. And although I would have liked him to get a Super Bowl that one year where they were making a big push in the playoffs, where he had that amazing game. I forget who they played, but and ended up going to overtime, and he balled the fuck out. And I remember because you texted me like, I got to get myself a Larry Fitzgerald jersey. Hey, I'm on that same boat. I want a black.
Larry Legend.
I want a black Cardinals jersey.
A blacked out.
Yep. Larry Legend.
Larry
and if I could get the patch of the Walter Payton Award on it too, that'd be dope too. Just because he's a great person on and off the field. So as for Patrick Peterson, I just hope he goes somewhere where he has opportunity to win.
Yeah, I think he'll definitely go to a place that he's gonna be able to win. I mean, when you're at this stage in your career, and obviously you are, you're not as good a player. Not that he's not good, but you're not as much of a stud as you once were. You're gonna take a pay cut to go to that Chiefs team or that Seattle team to go and win a Super Bowl. And honestly, though, he is in a position where he can make an immediate impact on those teams because those are 2 really good teams that do need corner help. So I wouldn't be surprised at either of those 2 locations as well as a couple others, but I definitely don't expect him to be sitting on the market for long unless that's by his own choice in terms of deciding on where he wants to go. So
and then in other news, so these are this is going to be our last topic, you can say, but there's rumors about some quarterbacks around the league. Sam Darnold for one, Carson Wentz for another. But let's start with Carson Wentz. There was rumors saying that he should be getting dealed sometime soon. There was a report saying that a deal with the Bears was close but not yet official, where he would be going to Chicago. And I'm like, what are they doing? He's gonna get flashbacks immediately just because Nick Foles is there. He's gonna be scared that he's gonna lose his job again to Nick Foles. I mean, you leave a place where you lost your job to him, and then once he left, you had to deal with his statue outside of the stadium. So every time you went to the work, you had to see this guy, and then going to Chicago, you had to see him again. But there's reports that Nick Foles would be heading back to Philly in return for Carson Wentz, along with I think their first round pick, which is number 20. And another offensive player they reported. And then I read deeper, and someone said Tariq Cohen was that offensive player. And then Tariq Cohen got suspicious about it to the point where he called his GM and his coach to confirm that he was not the player in the reports, and they confirmed to him, quote unquote, that he's not the player. So he was like, "Don't worry, Bears down. I talked to them. These reports is foo-foo. You know what I'm saying?"
This cap. You know teams be
Well,
lying.
you know they'd be lying because they're like, "Don't worry," and then next thing you know, you're out of the door. But
It's like they did the Odell.
well, they do to many players. But
Yeah.
I think honestly, that wouldn't be a bad deal for either team in that sense. I think Philly getting Nick Foles, having him as a backup, and knowing the system, or not if they're running this similar system as Frank Reich and Doug Peterson, that's not a bad move. He's an expensive backup at that, but to have him there, as long as you commit to Jalen Hurts as your quarterback, that's not bad. But then to get Tariq Cohen, who's he can change the game, and he almost fulfill the Darren Sproles role that they had at one point in time.
Yeah.
But for Chicago, getting him out just means you're committing to David Montgomery, and just look what he did at the end of the season with his running ability. Carson Wentz gets the fresh start in a similar offense with Matt Nagy. So I think it wouldn't be a terrible move. That's not the ideal location I would like to see Carson Wentz go. I think the Colts should push harder to get him, honestly, because I think that's the only location that he should be going to. But if that deal is true, like the details, I don't think it's a bad move for either team. But if I'm the Bears, I think you're giving up too much for Carson
Yeah,
Wentz.
I don't think it's a bad trade either. But I also like to keep in mind that the fact that, and I mean, I paid a lot of attention to it due to the fact that he was on my fantasy team more so. But David Montgomery did have quite a few games at the end of the year. But let's also take into account that that was the best stretch, excuse me, best stretch in terms of running defenses that they were playing that he had all year. I mean, he had some of the worst ranked running defenses in the league towards the last stretch of his schedule at the end of the year. So I will take that into account as
Oh, for
well.
sure, yeah.
But it isn't a bad trade for both teams. The only weird part about it is obviously the elephant in the room, and that's the Eagles and Doug Peterson, due to the fact that you know, they got rid of Doug Peterson, and it was rumored to be because that he didn't wants to be the quarterback of the future, and now they're dealing him anyways. So it just seems like Philadelphia is a whole mess right now.
Who you telling?
And they really have a lot to figure out because it seemed like they wanted Carson Wentz to be their guy, and Doug Peterson didn't, so they got rid of him, and now they almost seem like they still don't know what they want to do. So
I mean, I joked. Well, I didn't really joke about it. I mentioned it, and Jose laughed, and he goes, "Devin, I didn't realize you were, going to say the joke of the day." But I said, imagine the Eagles go out and trade Wentz, which they are, and then they draft a quarterback with the number 6 spot.
I wouldn't surprise.
Now you're back to square one because you have Nick Foles. Let's say this trade goes through. You have Nick Foles. You have Jalen Hurts, and Jalen Hurts could be your quarterback of the future, but you don't
I
commit
say
to him.
just give Jalen. I say Jalen Hurts. Just give him the keys for a
No,
season.
I agree with you 100%. But with
No,
the
that's what I'm
mess
saying.
that the Eagles are, and with Howie Roseman still in the GM seat, who says this isn't out of the realm of possibility where he deals Wentz just to draft another quarterback, and now you have almost a 3 quarterback, not committee but competition. So they're back to square one because I think the best bet is to trade Wentz for however much you can get for him, and then trade back from the number 6 spot and get additional draft capital because trade him to a QB needy team. You don't need a quarterback when you have Jalen Hurts.
Yeah.
And then you could because they have an aging roster with too many holes and financial issues. So trading back will help them financially, but also get draft capital to fulfill those needs that they have. Because
Get draft capital, put some weapons around Jalen Hurts, give him a season to show
Right.
you what he can do. Given whatever you can find for him over a season, and then go from there.
Because I think I was reading that they might deal Ertz in a trade for Wentz, like both send them both to the same team because they're both out of there. It's a wrap. Like financially, they can't do it, and that's probably the best bet for the future. So if Chicago could get Ertz too, that would be nice. Compensation for him because then in that case I would be like, oh, they're not giving that much for him, in terms of Wentz. So that would be nice. But for the Eagles, I just think they have so much to fill, and I don't think they should draft a receiver in the first round. Although that's the glaring need that everyone is blowing up. Like you just drafted a receiver in the first round, in Jalen Rieger. Why are you going to waste another pick on a receiver when this class is supposed to be just as deep as last year's class in terms of receiver, and you have more needs? Like you need an offensive tackle because Jason Peters isn't going to be there forever, and Lane Johnson's not going to change, and Dillard can, I guess, move into guard, but he's not the answer at left tackle either. You need offensive line help because Kelsey might be done in Philly as well, so you need offensive line help. You need linebackers, you need corners, you need just DBs in general. You need everything. So
Philly is a dumpster fire.
So yes, that's exactly why I wouldn't have touched that coaching job. A lot of people were, ranking Nick Caserio because his intro ceremony because he was stuttering or stumbling over his words. But what he was saying wasn't wrong. Like for a coach, that's not what he was saying wasn't bad. It was just the way he was executing that. And a lot of people were hard on him. I was like, just give the guy a chance. Like it was nerves, but as someone who stutters and stumbles over the words a lot, like you shouldn't reflect his coaching ability based off of his intro or how he's speaking to the media. This is his first time he's doing so. So because he was a quarterback coach at some point. He wasn't the guy. So he shouldn't be reflected based off of this. So I think give him a chance to prove himself. Just look at Matt LaFleur in Green Bay. His intro ceremony was terrible. He was just doing the same thing that the Phillies head coach was doing. And, look how well he did. His first 2 seasons, he made it to the NFC Championship. So you can't reflect his coaching ability.
Bro, Rogers back.
Yeah, you can't reflect his coaching ability based off of that. So I think Philly's a dumpster fire, but you gotta be on the bright spot, especially if you're an Eagles fan. You gotta think positively, and hopefully they listen to people like Donovan McNabb, even though they hate him out in Philly. He seems to know the future or what to do in terms of getting rid of Wentz and building around Jalen Hurts. I mean, it's chaotic over there in Philly.
Yeah, definitely. To say the least.
But there's another guy on the market in Sam Darnold, and it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility that he ends up in Philly when Wentz is traded. So that's a lot of people are hitting up the Jets in terms of their interest in Sam Darnold. Doesn't surprise me, especially with them having the second pick and can go either way. I think they should just draft offensive linemen. We've both mentioned this in past episodes, and just build around Sam Darnold. But he showed enough promise.
If I'm Sam Darnold, I'm praying the Jets trade me. But if I'm the Jets, I'm stupid to trade him. I don't know. I mean, really, they've had him for the past few years, and they've put nothing around him. Nothing notable, nothing worthy of making any noise. But they're kind of expecting. It seems like they're almost expecting results from this young quarterback, and giving him nothing. And I get it, I mean, you draft a young quarterback like that, you want him to make an immediate impact, but it's really hard to do when you're like I said, your team just puts nobody around you. And I think, like I said, if I'm him, I'm hoping they get me out of there. I'm hoping they get me to a franchise that people even want to go to, that has some draft capital, that has some direction. And right now, the Jets I feel like they've been stagnant the last few years, and it almost feels like they drafted Sam Darnold and was like, okay, win us something. and kind of just really gave them no help to do so.
I
So
just want to correct myself. I said Nick Caserio in terms of referring to the Patriots, or not the Eagles head coach. Nick Caserio is the GM of the Texans. It's Nick Sirianni is the head coach of the Eagles. So I correct myself. I apologize, but I agree. They haven't gave Sam Darnold jack shit over there in New York, and that's what they got in production. I mean, he wasn't lying when he said he was seeing ghosts when he played the Patriots, because he was literally seeing ghosts. I mean, as soon as he said hike, just as bad as Patrick Mahomes was getting pass rush in the Super Bowl, that was him on every play. Like, they had nobody. They finally got him an offensive lineman in Mekhi Becton. Why not go get Penei Sewell, put him at left tackle, put Mekhi Becton at right tackle, and protect him, or go get him a playmaker. Like, Jamar Chase is there, Devontae Smith is there, Jalen Waddle is there. The dude has no weapons. Like, just go get him something. And then defensively,
I mean, there's a running back that the Chiefs didn't use in the Super Bowl named Le'Veon Bell that you just got rid of.
they don't need that guy. This class is deep enough to go get somebody in terms of running backs like Najee Harris, Travis Etienne. There's multiple names on that list that they can go out and get. I mean, they have P. Ryan, who showed some promise at the end of last season. I don't think he's the guy, but he can definitely help them offensively. But they need some help over there. I mean, they have the draft capital. So the only way I say move on from Sam Darnold is if you get Deshaun Watson. That's it. Honestly, I think the smart decision would to build around him with the draft capital and the salary cap that you have. So, good luck to Sam Darnold. Like you said, hopefully he gets out of New York. If not, let's see what they can do. So that's all we have for you guys today. It wraps up episode 10 of Balls Deep with Devin Jovan. Season 2. But make sure to go like, follow, and subscribe. Check out our guy at the guys at the Expansion Pack podcast, and leave some reviews. Let us know. Hit us up. Do what you gotta do, and we'll do what we gotta do. Show love. We show love back. I mean, we just had a giveaway. Who says we don't have another one soon? So stay tuned, and keep showing love. Until next time.
Peace.
You're talking about balls deep. I'm talking about balls deep. We're talking about balls deep in love. I'm talking about balls deep. My boy's talking about balls deep. We're talking about balls deep in love.